So this is a head, heart, and handwork post. So I normally just spend time on this app doing silly fun stuff, but I decided to do a little bit more about my stitchy, crafty, knitting life. And so I'm going to do them a little more often. Hopefully. We'll see how life goes. So I have been a needleworker for most of my life. I picked up my first needlework when I was 5 years old. It was a stamp sampler from like the local Five and Dime. And so that's been 45 years. And so I've been at it for a while. And a couple of years ago, I started this really big project. Generally, when I do my counted cross stitch, I work in hand. So I don't use a hoop and I don't use a scroll frame. But a few years ago, I was working on this, started this huge project. The fabric is 32 inches square. It's huge. And holding that was getting rough on my hands. So I started doing some research about either using Q-snaps or hoops. And I found this discussion about these American-made hardwood hoops that didn't have any fasteners to make them open or close. That I thought was kind of interesting. And so I went and got one off at Etsy. It's hard to see. It's a Duchess brand. And what's really kind of cool, but as you can see, there's no hardware on this thing. You just slip the hoop over it. Now what's cool is on the inside, there's wool. So that helps keeps the tension. And I actually really did like working with this one. It wasn't too much, like $30 for an antique. They were made in Ohio in the early 20th century, early 1900s. But I had to stop working with this one because the wood cracked a little bit on one side and I kept catching things with it. So I was like, put it aside. And then this last Christmas, a couple weeks ago, my grandmother died back in May. And my mom and I were going through a box and I found not one, not two, but 4 of these hoops made by the Gibbs Company. I have one that's a princess and it's little and it's got this spring on it, which is what allows it to open. And then this is a Duchess oval. And my grandmother was not a needleworker, but her mother was, her grandmother was, her aunts were. So these were probably bought brand new by one of my ancestors in the Santa Clara Valley. And this one still has all the fabric. She covered it. I've been using this on my big project and it's beautiful. Now these are cool. They're still metal. They're made by the same company, same age approximately. But because the metal is so old, I'm a little hesitant to actually use them on anything. But this one, instead of the wool, it has cork, which I think is kind of cool. So that was my treasure find for Christmas.